All righty. Thank you.
All right, so we are joined from St. Petersburg, Florida, by my friend, Wounded Warrior spokesperson, former Notre Dame Fighting Irish point guard, 2015 recipient of the ESPY Award, Pat Tillman Award for Service, Danielle Green. We thank you so much for taking some time to speak to us today. This is for our senior class here at Velma Jackson High School. I've got a room full here with me. We've got other teachers online with us, and we're recording this for all of our seniors in Madison County schools, Madison Central High School, Ridgeland High School, Germantown High School, the Academic Options Center, and our YouTube channel. So thank you so much for taking some time out of your busy schedule for us today.
You are absolutely welcome. Hey, I'm honored to be with the 2025 senior class. Whoop, whoop, give it up. I hope y'all you clap, applaud. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
That's awesome. Now, and we've talked a little bit about you. We've seen some of the things you've done, but just give us a little background because you're from the South Side of Chicago, and I think it was cool. You said
Yeah.
for 12 years of your life, you identified as a student athlete because you got to go play for the legendary Coach Muffet McGraw at the University of Notre Dame. Played in 4 NCAA tournaments, played in the Final Four. Really had an incredible college basketball career. So just give us a little background on where that came from and how you grew up there in Chicago.
Absolutely. So I love sharing this story. It's a great story, but I'm from the inner city of Chicago, raised by a single parent. She was successful at the very beginning, was a bank teller at Continental Bank, and then in the early to mid 80s, the crack epidemic hit Chicago, the inner city of Chicago. And I knew she always smoked marijuana, but boys and girls, marijuana is the gateway. That's the gateway drug to other hardcore stuff. And so she became addicted to crack cocaine. And I had this loving grandmother who always told me to get out and be someone. So I would confide in her. And she the one kind of told me what my mom was doing and everything, but she always told me to stay focused. So growing up in the Midwest, I love watching college football. I love watching Notre Dame football. And if I was a guy, I probably would have played football. And so I fell in love with this school because of Touchdown Jesus. It's a
Yeah.
seven-story mural of Touchdown Jesus. So when you kick a field goal, it goes into his arms in the Golden Dome and the church. And I felt this spiritual connection, although I'm not Catholic. But I said, Mom, I want to go there. And she said, We're too poor to go there. You're not going to go there. But at halftime of each game, they would highlight something about the school, and they would also broadcast these military commercials. It would be Marines, Army, Navy, and I just remember watching Be All You Can Be, the the proud, the Marines, and I said, "Gee, I'm 7 years old." I said, "Man, I want to serve my country." So the pact that I made with myself at 8, if I didn't go to the University of Notre Dame, I was going to serve my country. So fast forward a couple of years later, I discovered basketball. And I'm roaming the streets and I find a basketball, no air. And I remember back in the day, we had milk crates, they was nailed on telephone poles and bicycle rims. And I remember and I was left-handed, just shooting, just shooting, just shooting. Fast forward, so fast forward some years later, I'm 12 years old and I'm playing at a local high school. And a guy saw me playing, a stranger, complete stranger. He said, if you really work on your game, you could earn a scholarship. Bingo. Earning a scholarship would be my golden ticket out of the inner city of Chicago and into the University of Notre Dame. So despite my family situation, because it was tough. I tell people I was so poor that I couldn't even spell it. It was P-O instead of P-O-O-R. Because we were poor, like electric off, the heat off. You're keeping milk and eggs cool through the mid, through your door, the screen door and the door. That's how poor we were and rodent infested. So I had to deal with all those daily challenges on top of trying to keep my academics up and trying to keep my sanity. Because you got men coming in and out the house, you got mama getting high, you got your auntie getting high. So it was like I had to figure out how to, keep it all together. And what helped me was academics and the game of basketball. I was always talented athletically. So I decided I moved with my grandmother in high school. I left my mother. She came to visit when she could, and my grandmother provided that stability. And no matter what you're going through, ladies and gentlemen, you gotta find that one person whether it's a family member, whether it's a teacher, your school counselor, your coaches. You got to find that one stabilizing person that believes in you and can remind you that you're not going crazy and you are making good choices and you can do it if you're willing to, if you're determined, you can persevere. You got to invest in yourself too. That was the big thing. I believed in invest in myself. So I moved to the south side of Chicago with my grandmother, gang infested, just a lot of violence. So I traveled for 4 years in high school, 50 miles round trip, 25 miles to get to a north side school, 25 miles back, two trains and a bus for 4 grueling years. I would wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning, leave the house at 5:30 to catch that first bus, catch the train, then catch another bus to make it to those 6:30, 6:45 morning formations. I was a member of JROTC, and I loved it. It gave me leadership skills. It instilled that discipline that I already was developing anyway. And it just gave me a chance to meet a whole different group of kids and kind of allow me to explore the military a little bit. It's a little bit different in high school compared to the real military, but I was willing to sacrifice that, that time as partying and having fun so I could get to the University of Notre Dame. Now I'm 17 and Hall of Fame coach Muffet McGraw comes and sees me play. She loves what she sees and she invites me to the campus. And before I left, I said, Coach, I'm going to commit to the University of Notre Dame. I committed at the age of 17. And I
Wow.
look back on that journey, that 7-year-old, and looked at all I had to overcome and all the obstacles. Think about my track and field athletes, those hurdles. It was hurdle after hurdle, and people saying you can't do it. But there I was. I earned that scholarship to the University of Notre Dame. Perseverance, grit, hard work. But the most important thing is you got to have a positive mindset. It didn't matter what was going on in the streets, in my home. I had to stay positive and I had to really narrow in my focus.
That's incredible. Now, we have several athletes at our school. We've won several state championships in powerlifting, track and field, basketball. We've been in the state championship game in football, and we have a lot of athletes that say they want to be Division I athletes. They want to be college athletes of some sort,
Hmm.
and we definitely support them. And we've had some that have gone on to have great college careers. But I think, and even though it has changed in our time with the NIL era, talk a little bit about
Yes.
level of commitment that it takes to be a collegiate athlete on any level. Because a story I always tell, and I know Miss Davis will appreciate this, because we were at Southern Miss together. I remember when I was a senior at Southern
Hmm.
Miss, I was good friends with the football player Marvin Young, and they had played on ESPN the night before
Hmm.
against UT in Birmingham, Alabama. They got home at 1 in the morning back to campus. It's eight
Hmm.
8:45 the next morning, and I see Marvin Young walking across campus. I'm like, dude. He goes, yeah, man, I had a test. I couldn't miss it. So this is somebody that had played a
Right, right.
physical football game the night before, and he's up early the next morning going to class. So obviously they have online classes now,
Hmm.
so it's not as difficult. But talk about the level of commitment because it's not just
Right.
skip practice when you want to, go to class when you want to. Talk a little bit about that because I don't
Right.
think that is really mentioned enough for our young people as they have dreams of being collegiate athletes.
Right. Well, for me, if I could tell you anything, you develop that work ethic and that commitment in high school. You don't just go to campus and you develop it. Like you've been developing it since middle school, you're high school, now you're a senior. So you already have it in you, but you got to know the stakes are higher at the next level. So when I was in high school, my high school coach was like a dad to me. Coach McGraw wasn't like a mom for me. It's a business, ladies and gentlemen. So you have to keep your grades up. I don't know what the GPAs are now, but I think back then maybe it was a 2.0. And I went to the University of Notre Dame, so the expectations was high. So you got to keep those grades up and you got to compete. You got to compete every day because you know what? People think it's a 4-year scholarship. No, I signed that letter of intent every spring or every summer. So if you're not producing on that field or on that basketball court, they can say bye-bye. And like Greg said, it's different, but you got to really horn in on your time management skills. Yeah, you might want to go to that party, but you got a big game against the University of Connecticut or LSU. You got to pick. And I would say don't pick a college just for their athletic program. Know what you want to major in because that pyramid gets narrow. You got youth sports at the bottom, you got high school sports, then you got collegiate, and then maybe 1 or 2% are professional. All of us, we want to go professional, but we're probably not going to go professional. So you got to go to a school where they got your top five majors. So maybe you blow out Achilles like I did my sophomore year in high school, I mean college. Yeah, my sophomore year in college. Maybe your career ends. Now what? So you got to stay committed and you got to be a team player. I wasn't I wasn't always a team player my first 2 years. It was about me, me, me. Now you're with men and women as twice as big as you, stronger than you, quicker than you. So you got to adjust and just remember, I mean, not just on the athletic field. Once you graduate from college, even high school, and you don't go to college, like the stakes get higher and higher. Like you're competing for that job or that position. So it all comes down to that mental fortitude, and the time that you're willing to invest in yourself and take advantage of the resources that you have at your exposure now. Seek out those teachers that have been at the next level. And even if they haven't played, like they can give you some great insight so you don't fall on your face at the next level. But for me, it was just about time management, finding somebody on campus, not neglecting your mental health. People don't know that I worked with a sports psychologist all 5 years at the University of Notre Dame because for me, that school was a culture shock. I came from an all black urban society to I'm going to put it out there, a privilege. It was privilege, entitled, rich, white kids, campus. It is what it is. So it was a culture shock. So I struggled with that. And so I leaned on that sports psychologist and he helped me through. And I'm still friends with him today, almost what, 25? Oh my God, 30 years later, we're still friends. So seek those resources, seek your community, join a fraternity or sorority, find your community. And I failed to do that. I'm telling you straight up, I failed to do that. And by the grace of God, I made it through. By the grace of
Yeah,
God and my belief.
and I'm glad you mentioned that because even if somebody doesn't want to be an athlete, one thing of all the cuts in spending that colleges have, one thing they have invested in, especially here in Mississippi, is mental health services. Pretty much every community college, every
Hmm.
college has free mental health services on campus. And I'm glad you mentioned something about finding your community. I tell this story often, and I know they get sick of me telling this, but I think it's true. I went to Madison Central High School in our district, graduated with around 500 people, very large high school. So I was
Hmm.
used to, but I had a class in college that had around 500 people in it. And there was a guy in the class I had literally known my entire life, and I did not know he was in there until the last day.
Hmm.
So it is that easy to get lost in the shuffle. So that's why it's so important that time
It
management.
really
You
is.
know, that teacher didn't know me from a can of paint. I could have fallen asleep, and she wouldn't have been able. And
Hmm.
she would not. Well, first of all, she wouldn't have cared. Second of all, she wouldn't have known. So you have to take accountability for those grades. Now, if a smaller school is a better fit for you, by all means, I think that's where you need to go. I agree 100% with the statement you just made.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you know what? You can get lost within the team. As small as basketball is, I got lost. 14 girls, I probably was the 14th kid. And so you get lost there too. And so, like you said, you gotta ask for help because nobody knows that you're suffering inside. Like I said, that's for my non-student athletes too. That's for my band members, people who just want to be students. Find somebody. Be cool with, connect with your roommate. I never did a good job of connecting with my roommate. It was like I had social skills in Chicago, but when I got to college, I forgot all that stuff. And there was nobody saying, Danielle, you need to do this, that, and that. But now I'm here to tell you, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, do this, that, and that.
Yeah, now and I think it's cool. I just had one of our top JROTC students come in because after you graduated from
Cool.
Notre Dame, you said yourself you didn't have a
Hmm.
lot of direction, and you did work as
I
a teacher and
didn't.
coach for a while, and then in 2002 you joined the U.S. Army. So take us
I did.
so take us through that
25.
and what went into that, and you wound up serving our country.
So I was teaching and coaching for a couple of years. I really enjoyed that. I was on the verge of starting graduate school, but then 9/11 hit. And I was just in shock. Everybody was just in shock, like what's going on? And I knew I wanted to serve, but I didn't know if I wanted to serve like right then and there. I think I was 24 when that happened. And so I said, well, let me continue to teach and coach and see. But as I got a little bit older, the next year hit, I was 25, that I felt like this clock in my head went off. It's just like when a woman wants to get pregnant and she's like 30 something or 40, and she's like, oh man, I better do it now. And I knew I was hitting my prime or in my prime athletically. And I just went on and did it. So what I did, I researched each branch. I knew a little bit about the Air Force because I did some research before I left college. I researched Navy, Marines, Army, everything, and looked to see what would be a good fit. And I thought the Army would be a good fit for me. Then I had to decide, would I enlist or would I go to officer candidate school? I knew we were going to war. And I felt like just because I had a degree, a college education, that didn't make me equipped to lead men and women into battle. So I thought I enlisted. So I didn't start off as a private. I started off as a specialist, an E4. And then it came down to, my military occupational specialist. And so I decided to become a military police officer because I felt like if I got that experience, then I could go DEA or FBI. And so went off to basic training, AIT training. First duty station was Fort Lewis, Washington. And then in October of 2003, we received orders that we were going to Iraq. I'm not gonna kid you. I was scared because I had saw people, soldiers coming back, and they had this glare in their eyes. And I'm like, what is wrong with them? I think they had PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, but I didn't know what that was back then. But now I understand, and they was like, whatever you can do, don't go over there. But I knew I had volunteered to raise my hand to serve and protect this great nation, and so I had to fulfill that obligation. And so in January 2004, I deployed to Iraq as the company commander's gunner.
Wow. Now, before we talk about what happened after that, real briefly, I do want to say, because we have several kids that we think would be great serving our country in the military, but it's not like you see on the movies. It's not just let's blow stuff up, kick doors down, come in guns
Mm-mm.
a-blazing. It's not like the movie Full Metal Jacket where it's just screaming in your face all the time. I'm not even a military
Mm-hmm.
veteran, and I know we have a couple watching with us now, and I know that I can speak for them. I tell kids these training commanders, they want you to complete it. They want you to succeed. They do not
Mm-hmm.
want you to say this is too hard and quit. So I think that's very important to understand is
Right.
that if people are thinking about the military, yes, it's going to be hard. It's going to push you mentally and physically. But at the end of the day, the military wants you to succeed.
They want you to succeed. And another thing, don't join the military just for benefits. You're a soldier or airman or a sailor or whatever. You're that first. So don't go in there just because you can go to school for free or you're going to get this big time bonus, because once you go to war, it changes you. And maybe
Yeah.
those dreams and aspirations and goals that you had prior to going into the service, they dissipate, they go away. So go in knowing that if you sign the dotted line tomorrow, that you may be shipped to the Middle East or wherever in the world. Just know that you may have to work those borders. So just know and do your research up front that you are a service person first. And if you make it and you keep your mindset straight, then you can enjoy those benefits on the back end. And if I can tell anybody that's thinking about the military now, read up on post-traumatic stress disorder, traumatic brain injury, military sexual trauma. Because see, the one thing that the military teaches you, it teaches you how to, train leadership, how to take apart a weapon, clean it, put it back together. But they don't tell you on the back end, you might have these physical injuries, you might have these mental health issues. So no, that's a part of the package if you're not aware and informed up front.
Exactly. And I just think, and we have several alums that are active duty military right now all over the world, and all of them have said a lot of the same
Hmm.
things. And honestly, the response has been overwhelmingly positive. They just went on and on about what a great decision it was, and we are so proud of them for serving our country as well
Hmm.
and representing the school. Now, um, in 2004, you obviously had a life-changing, life-altering event. So I know we have talked
Mhm.
about it some, but I'll let you take us through the incident that happened May 25th, 2004.
Okay. So May 25th, 2004. So one of my duties, I was like I said, I went over there as the company commander's gunner, but then I had to go back to the line platoon. I think I was part of the third platoon. I can't remember now. And so one of our duties was to go into central Baghdad, Iraq, and we had a police station that we manned. And so we had a group of people that would go inside. They would train Iraqi police officers. We had a group that would patrol below, ground patrol. And then we had a group of people that would go up to the rooftop that would provide security and stuff. And so on this particular day, it was 115 degrees. And let me say, May 25th, 2004, it was my turn to go up to the rooftop to provide rooftop security. And normally we would go up there with two or three people, but we were short a couple of teams. And we would even take some of the Iraqi kids up there. People think everybody's evil over there, but everybody was not evil. We had some allies over there, but even that day they was missing, so it was very, very eerie. I go up to the rooftop, towards the back. I walk to the front, look at the area. Everything's clear. I take cover, and I don't even know how much time elapsed, but all I know is something hit 2 stories below, and one of my teammates, soldiers, said, "Hey, Green, did you see where that came from?" I said, "No, Sarge." And so I picked up my M4, which is my weapon, and as I looked, I got into the kneeling position, and as I was about to switch the lever from safety to fire, something hit me. I know today that it was a rocket propelled grenade blast, but 21 years ago, I didn't know. I just felt the impact. So it knocked me down. I didn't have far to go. And all I kept thinking was, this isn't real. This is like a scene from Hollywood, but I'm the main attraction. And so I'm in shock, and my ears are ringing. There's dust in the air, and I'm just like, what just happened? And I remember just being so angry and in shock. And I was angry because I thought I was gonna die. I was 27 years old. And I was like, I didn't want to die because I felt like I had so much more living, so much more to offer. So I just lay there on my side like this. And then at some point, I realized that I might survive this. And so I remember looking in the skies, the heavens, and I said, God, I don't know what I've done in this lifetime, but give me the strength to live and to be able to tell my story. And I wanted a child. And I felt a surge of energy hit my body where I thought I could get up and run, but I couldn't. And when I looked, I could see that the left side of my body was covered with blood. My uniform was soaked. My leg was soaked with blood. And my fellow soldiers, they came up, perform first aid, and I was medevaced. So I don't know how many hours later I woke up in the green zone, which is the hospital. And my Master Sergeant Harrelson waved over the chain of command to come over, and they were crying. And I couldn't figure out why they were crying. But then when I looked down, I understood why they were crying, because their rocket propelled grenade blast took off my left arm. So I have a prosthetic here. I have a prosthetic. So the rocket, it just took it straight off, just straight off. And so I cried. And I cried because I knew that was the end of my military career. I knew that was the end of any dreams of becoming an FBI agent or a DEA agent. I cried because what was I going to do? I was an amputee now. And I thought, why me? But then I wiped my tears up because I realized that my first prayer had been answered, and the fact that I was alive was something to be celebrated. And so the battalion commander came over and he pinned me with the Purple Heart. That's the Purple Heart is a medal that's given, for combat injuries. And he kissed me on my forehead and said I was his shero. And that's how that day ended. So on May 25th, yeah, my life dramatically changed. I became an amputee, but I'm
And
here and
then,
I'm
and
living.
then fast forward 11 years. All the work you did to speak about that and to encourage other people put you on the stage in Los Angeles next to Halle Berry with LeBron James, Steph Curry, Mike Trout, JJ Watt, all in the audience looking at you, and you spoke live on television in front of 7 million people about your experience because you were awarded the ESPY Award for Pat Tillman Award for Service. So, first of all,
Yes.
take us through that a surreal experience and how that's led to having more opportunity today.
Right. So while I was at the hospital, Wounded Warrior Project, the company, the non-for-profit organization that I work for now, they came and they offered me a backpack. And the significance of the backpack is it's full of toiletries because when you leave the battlefield, a lot of times you just have the clothes on your back. So I am forever grateful for them. But then there was other organizations, and so I felt like when I left Walter Reed Army Medical Center that I needed to give back. I needed to continue serving. As I said earlier, I had to find my new community. And so I worked for the Chicago Board of Education for several years, and it was great working with kids and everything. But I said, I think the more I told my story and I saw the impact, I felt like I needed to be working with veterans. And so I applied for a readjustment counseling position with the Department of Veterans Affairs, and I became a therapist. And I did work numerous projects in the community in South Bend, Indiana. And I received a phone call one day, from the ESPY Award committee member saying, "Hey, we hear about the great work that you're doing, and we want to interview you and possibly offer you the Pat Tillman Award for service." And so I went to New
Wow.
York, I interviewed. About a week later, they called and said, "Hey, we want to offer you this." And so it's just an amazing feat because, Pat Tillman was more than just a football player in my book. He gave up, NFL player, gave up millions of dollars to serve his country alongside his brother. And he didn't just join the regular army, he became a ranger. And I'm just giving you all a little history lesson. He was killed in 2004, around the same time I was injured, friendly fire. So our own accidentally killed him. And so to speak his name and breathe his name keeps his legacy alive. And so to receive that award on behalf of him and his sacrifice and his courage was just the biggest honor. Besides receiving my scholarship to the University of Notre Dame, like that award, what that man sacrificed and his widow, what she was able, that legacy, it just meant the world to me. So it didn't matter about Holly Berry and LeBron James. It was Pat Tillman and somebody recognizing that, man, this lady lost her arm. And ladies and gentlemen, I was left hand dominant. So when I was shooting all those baskets, it was as a lefty, not as a righty. So just imagine that doing everything with your non-dominant hand. But yeah, that award is right there at the top of one of my major I guess achievements.
Yeah, and that's led to you now being able to speak all across the world to people from every walk of life, to all the veterans that have served our country. And I thought it was cool. Me and you talked a couple of weeks ago. We were setting this up, and you said how excited you
Mhm.
were because you speak in corporate America, you speak in veterans homes, you speak at VFWs all the time, and you love doing that. But you said you almost never get to speak to high school kids. So, and I've got a couple questions we're
Never.
going to get to as well. But just tell me why it was such a thrill for
Okay.
you to speak to a different age group than you usually get to speak to.
Yeah, to be honest with you, I've always thought my story was tailored for maybe middle school to maybe college kids. And so when Greg reached out to me on LinkedIn, I was just tickled to death. I mean, I was hoping he wasn't a bad guy or nothing. So I responded back, and it's just an honor to be able to speak to young folks because I don't remember people coming back speaking to me and telling me, "Hey, you can do this, you can do that. Think about this, think about that. Take care of your mental health. Everybody's not your friend. Everybody's not going to like you. Everybody's not going to love you. Love people. I didn't get those lessons. And so there's so many life lessons that I can share. And I have a 10-year-old son. He doesn't listen to me though. But I hope you all will take something that I've given you and listen. So for me, it's just, I mean, this is the highlight of my day. I'm gonna be on cloud nine for the rest of my day. And like I said, just take the time to listen to good people that have your best interests in mind.
And our Colonel Francisco, she just put, "It is truly inspiring to hear your story, and thank you for your service, Hua." She was a lieutenant colonel for
Yeah.
I don't want to put too many
All
years on
right.
her, the wrong amount of years on her service, but she did serve our country a very long time as well. But I have a couple questions here for some kids here with me.
Okay.
I got Pershay Luckett here who
Okay.
wants to join the military upon graduation. One of our top leaders in our
Mm-hmm.
JROTC program. And she has a few questions, but she asks, what was your biggest fear before you joined?
My biggest fear, well, I was young, I was older. So I was 25 going on 26. There's a lot of 17, 18, 19, 20, 21 year olds that are going to be in a position of authority over you. And so my biggest fear was how can I put my ego to the side? How can I humble myself and allow these younger folks to lead me? So I had to learn how to be a good follower. So that was my biggest fear, and I did a pretty good job with it because I did the mental prep work prior to joining the service.
And then she asks, how have all these obstacles you faced to help strengthen you and motivate you?
The biggest thing is faith. Like you got to believe in something. I don't think I'm a religious person, but I definitely believe I'm a spiritual person, and we're put on this earth for a reason. And I wish life was linear, that it was straight, and the mountain to the mountaintop was straight. But there's some obstacles. But we shouldn't, run away from those challenges. We should try to meet them head on and conquer them so then we can help the next generation or help our kids, just like I'm here today and just like all the speakers you've heard from. All of them dealt with obstacles and challenges, but how do we get better as a people, as a community, as a country if we don't go through stuff, if we don't have testimonies? And I'm sure you have a testimony too, and you'll be able to come back and share with your alma mater. And so for me, and now my why is my son. So I really got to be on my P's and Q's with him. And I know that in my heart that, this is just the start of talking to high school kids. I think I have so many life lessons. And so I got to stay straight. And my life was spared for a reason 21 years ago. So when I say I'm living, I am truly living.
That's incredible. And that's a great segue to this question. This is Arius Cooper. And he asked, how has losing your hand changed you because you seem to be so blessed? You seem to be so blessed to still be alive.
I just live life to the fullest. If there's something I want to do, like me and my son, we travel all over. Like if it's in the budget, I'm going to do it. I don't wait for tomorrow. All I know is today. And I really try hard not to look in the rearview mirror, but sometimes you have to look in the rearview mirror to think about those lessons and how far you have come. But I try to stay in the moment. I try to stay grounded. My son is my why, and just looking for that next life challenge. I'm actually training to summit Mount Kilimanjaro, so that's next on my
No
plate, and so
way.
that keeps, yeah,
Wow.
that keeps me going. So life is to be lived and not be stagnated or just stuck in quicksand. So I'm training for that, and I'm going to do it. I'm gonna come back next year. You guys will be off in college, working, service, and I'm gonna share that experience with you all next year.
I can't wait. Now, we're
And why
almost out
be
of time.
negative? Why be negative? Yeah, I
Yeah.
got you. And why be
It-
negative when I'm
yeah.
here? I'm here 21 years later.
That's incredible. And we're almost out of time. And we thank you so
Mhm.
much for taking some time for us. But a couple things
You're
before we go.
welcome.
Uh, First of all, the Wounded Warrior Project, just if anybody wants to get involved with that, I know you've got a big presence there. There are so many disabled veterans across this country. And a lot of those
Hmm.
disabilities are things we can't see. So how can people get involved with the Wounded Warrior
Right.
Project to help veterans?
You can go to woundedwarriorproject.org. That's woundedwarriorproject.org. We have over 18 free programs and services for not only the veteran, but for their caregiver, their spouses, their dependents, because we believe that in order to heal the veteran, you got to look at them holistically. And that's the family unit too, and get the community involved. So if you go to the website, there's ways to fundraise, there's ways to volunteer.
Yeah.
And just remember, my service people who are thinking about joining Wounded Warrior Project will be accessible to you too. So start doing your research. And if you do plan on going to the service, start working on your mental fortitude. You're going to need it.
Now, the last thing before we go, I mean, and your story will never not be amazing to me, but it's incredible how you can have such a huge loss in something that we take for granted. But you always focus on what
Mhm.
you can, not what you can't do. And that just blows my mind to me, especially, and I'm a left-handed person, so I definitely feel you on the left-hand dominant stuff. Um, so,
Yes.
as these kids get ready to transition out of high school in just a few months onto their next step, what do they need to have in mind? Because some are going to go to military, some aren't. We presented up all types of options.
Hmm.
So as they get ready to face these
Right.
obstacles as high school seniors and as young adults, what do they need to do to prepare for these obstacles when they come?
Well, continue to invest in yourself. I cannot say that enough. Do a body scan, in particular your mind. And if you need help, go seek help. And if you don't, let me see, if you don't get that A, if you don't get that B, if you don't get that scholarship to Harvard, it's not the end of the world. And I'm gonna put that out there. Committing suicide is not an option. It's not an option. It just means that that route wasn't meant for you. So now you just got to reroute and go a different direction. But be flexible. Be flexible in the way you think and you feel and you behave. And think about how you can contribute to this society. You are all going to be contributing members to society. Don't mess it up. Don't mess it up because a lot of people don't get a second chance. This is like a fresh start for you all. But always take care of number one, and that's you. Love yourself because if you don't love yourself, nobody else will.
Absolutely. Well, again, we thank you so much for taking some time for us. Just such an incredible story, such an incredible role model. And like I said, we had two Army veterans here on staff with us that were getting to watch
Mhm.
this as well. And they send their congratulations to you. But again, the
Thank you.
2015 ESPY Pat Tillman Award for Service winner, all the way down in St. Petersburg, Florida, Danielle Green. We thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. Thank you. Y'all take care now.
Hooah.